Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. What day is it? It's Thursday, January 25th, 2018, and ready to roll on yet another show. Exciting moments here at the Kagro in the Morning World Headquarters. One of the members of our secret society, let us say, forgot his science notebook. It's a very secret society. I brought my Spanish notebook, Dad. I meant to bring my science notebook, and it's the second to last day of the marking period, and if I don't hand in my homework, oh my God, all kinds of secret society troubles will result. And, it's the earlier of the two departures, and so I made a mad dash across town to drop off a science notebook, and then back to the desk just in time to start today's show, and press a few wrong buttons as well. But everything seems to be rolling along just the same, and well enough, let's say. Justice gives the thumbs up all the way from the other coast, so you know it's got to be good. Bill, from the northern part of our own coast here in Portland, Maine, there in Portland, Maine, really, tweets, as he does each morning, Daily Coast Radio is live right now. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, hello, brings you up to speed on the latest Trump controversy. Why doesn't the president have pores like the rest of us? Cyborg-gate, hashtag Cyborg-gate, no less. Good question. Looked super healthy in a photo used by The Hill for a story yesterday. I don't even know what the story was. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Just amazing looking that he looks like you half expect to see like Spalding tattooed on the back of his neck or something. He's like a giant basketball on top of a suit pushed out the door. Enormous puffy bags under his eyes. Looking super healthy, like a man in exceptionally excellent health. Or what was it? Astonishingly excellent health? That was the old kooky doctor, but now we got the awesome government doctor to say pretty much the same thing. So, do you take their word for it? I don't know. The man's not 6'3" or 239 pounds, whatever, but okay. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We'll take your word for it. The secret society, of course, has been revealed. I guess we can sort of get kind of up to date on that nonsense lie. But they've finally got the incriminating text. ABC News, I believe, got a hold of it last night, and it doesn't seem to be connected to anything in particular, and it just seems to be kind of a joke, like, haha, we should have a secret society. It doesn't even say, you know, what the secret society would do, but Trump is pretty sure it's a coup d'etat. Anyway, I guess we can get the update on that. But suffice to say, poor joke made between not very funny, I guess, FBI agents, one of whom, Barney Coopersmith of fame. You may have seen him rocket to fame and fortune out of the San Diego office in My Blue Heaven. He did just learn to make those jokes. I don't know. I guess they thought it was funny, but it's not even involved, and there's no answer to it, and it doesn't go on for very long, and it's like an FBI dad joke. But now it's being taken seriously. Imagine if we had taken seriously all the things that were said seriously by the Trump campaign or their supporters, but later dismissed as just joking. It's okay for them. It's okay if you're a Republican, I guess. For the rest of us, it's evidence of a super secret cabal against the Trump administration and perhaps society at large. You've seen it before. It takes many forms. I'm certain. Remember, if you see something, say something. I myself just discovered this morning a secret fifth columnist plot by a foreign-influenced chicken who was making an attempt to connect with his contact on the other side of the road. And I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because you never know when some of these things might turn out to be secret societies for the overthrow of the government of the United States. I just heard about another FBI agent who was dismissed from the Mueller investigation on charges of moral turpitude for enthusiastically encouraging others to take his wife, please. So you never know where this kind of thing is going to strike. You just have to be on your toes at all times, I guess. Okay, let's see. We have a raft of stories already piling up here. Wow, 28 messages, my goodness, from Greg, so we'll check in on that. Armando already reserving a block of time with good reason. It seems there's a breakthrough of some sort, at least according to the Politico headlines, in deal-making in the Senate, and it doesn't look like it's going to please anybody in our circles, but I guess he's got some procedural questions with respect to that. We'll save that for the second half of the show, I think, unless, of course, we've figured out how to do three-way calling, and that's what Greg wants to talk about. We'll find out. I can review his raft O stories and see if it's in there, but it's always comprehensive, and so there's a pretty good chance that that's the case. I believe the president is in Switzerland for the Davos conference. I think I saw somebody tweet a picture of his entourage arriving and walking up the steps, giving the finger to everyone in Switzerland. It was really rather amazing. With a big, he's got one of his gigantic ties on, and it actually has print on it that says, I hate fondue, which is really just overly antagonistic, I think. But his fan base is sure to love it, as it is, of course, anti-PC. There have been protests for days on the ground in Switzerland, which is covered in snow, by the way. Interesting to keep an eye on the avalanche report, as was mentioned the other day. But a lot of protests in advance of his arrival. Not particularly welcome there, but, apparently there's no way to stop him. Could we seal the exits in any way? I mean, it's a tough place to get in and out of Switzerland if they don't want you to go. Could we lure him into a bank vault? I mean, a Swiss bank vault tour would be enormously interesting to him, I'm sure. And they ought to offer that to him and put a little, like a scoop of ice cream in a dish or something. It would have to be at least 2 scoops of ice cream. I guess Cheetos, whatever other fun snacks. I know they do have McDonald's occasionally in Switzerland. And you could probably lure him in and just, all I'm asking, it's, you don't have to build anything weird or go out of your way or assume any other expense. I'll rent the box. I'll do a Kickstarter to cover the cost of the thing. Just close the door behind him and spin the wheel and walk away. That's all I'm asking. I don't know whether I'm going to get any kind of cooperation from Swiss authorities on this, but one can hope. All right, let's see. Everything else rolling along here? Looks like everything is underway. Oh, look, here's a picture of Trump waving his tiny mitts at somebody, photographing his arrival. Very exciting. The world's economic elite awaits the pearls of wisdom from the least liquid billionaire perhaps to attend in the history of the conference, which was what we learned it was called the other day. Okay, so let's see. Where are we? Anything else that needs immediate updates? Any other hot news crossing the wire? I don't think anything is enormously like flash news important. So we're on for the rest of the show. Okay, let's see. We got plenty to talk about, of course, today. Sam Brownback got his latest job wrapped up for him, gift wrapped by Vice President Mike Pence, who apparently had to show up at the Senate to cast his 8th tie-breaking vote in that body. I forgot to turn the music off on this thing. Now, why isn't it popping up like it's supposed to? Front and center, so that I can very easily punch the button. There's all sorts of fun things malfunctioning one piece at a time. I guess the Matrix is falling apart, as Oliver Willis has been telling us all along, and it's manifesting itself on my computers, which is a great place to start. Greg Dworkin, good morning. You are, in fact, there.
I am, in fact, here.
Excellent.
I got a chance to hear the music for a while, so it was nice.
Yes, me too, for quite a while. And normally, again, one of those little things, whenever a call comes in, of course, Skype now being active, it will leap to the fore on the layered tabs and various apps open on the computer and present the answer the call button very obviously and, like I say, front and center. But not today. It decided to hang back and enjoy.
I know you're there, but I just can't
snacks.
answer the phone.
Yes, right. I hear you ringing, but I lost the phone in the couch cushions. And
Well, Greg Ip, who is a economist, noted if Davos were truly snowed in, the food would run out in 3 hours. So how long until attendees turn to cannibalism?
Oh.
And would people be eaten in order of their badge rank? I suppose everybody gets a number, right?
I see. Okay, yeah, the VIP is getting I guess the most amazing, awesome, gold-plated badge. I would eat them first, sure.
Well, Jason Zweig said that, no, because obviously they'd eat the maids and janitors first,
I don't know, they're sinewy, man.
So that's how it works.
These are not gourmands. These are, I guess, these people haven't thought about it too much. Greg Ip, very economical, by the way, with the letters in his last name. That's good for an economist. IP, that's it.
Yeah, he sold the rest of the letters, for Bitcoin, and now is very wealthy.
Yes, he used to be named Ipanema.
The GOP, on the other hand, is having a bit of a problem with Trump. They don't like his tariff decision.
Tariff? Oh.
They're free traders, and Trump decided to put a tariff on solar and washing machine stuff for reasons that nobody understands.
Me neither.
The solar stuff might be just because he's trying to protect coal, and they own him. But the washing machine stuff is unclear.
He likes. He's got a lot of dirty laundry. No, he would want to clean that.
Well, we'll get to that. That's our next set of stories as we talk.
All right. Fresh. I'm ready to wait. I'll begin now.
But it says in Washington, at least half a dozen Republican senators condemned Trump's decision, his first tariff action, exposing GOP divisions over international trade that threaten the uneasy alliance between the president and lawmakers of his own party.
Uneasy. Okay.
See, it's a basic story. And he's angering people like Roy Blunt and some of the other free traders. I think the bigger picture there is we understand that lawmakers in the GOP will sell themselves out for anything so long as Trump follows their agenda.
Yes.
And so the underlying point here is, so what happens if Trump stops following their agenda? What happens?
Then they look bad when they sell out to him.
Yeah, I suppose. But, it's interesting. This isn't the beginning of the end of the Trump presidency because now the GOP will turn on him. But it just makes everything else they're trying to do a little bit more complicated. For example, Ted Cruz, who I think is still, if I'm not mistaken, the most unpopular senator of either party, wants to bring back the repeal Obamacare stuff. And Lisa Murkowski gave an interview in an Alaska paper where she basically says, take a walk. That's not happening.
Oh, okay.
Very stupid idea. Don't go there. Stuff along those lines. So, it'll be interesting. That's at the very bottom there from the Midnight Sun, Alaska, MidnightSunAK.com site. Murkowski says reopening Obamacare repeal would be a terrible idea. Don't go there.
I'll agree, but we'll see.
So, you have these fights on policy within the Republican Party. There's fights within the Republican Party, as we talked about yesterday, about immigration as well, which is complicating things. But as Chris Hayes pointed out, it's really the hardliners that are running the show there. So that's a problem. And I came across this old but useful pronunciation guide for lawmakers that I threw in at the very bottom there, so that you could see that my pronunciation of Bob Goodlatte is the approved one.
Okay, good latte. I thought that
you don't pronounce it as Grand Latte the way I was doing it.
You should just call him that, Bob Venti Latte.
That's what I thought, because I'm just so Starbucks conditioned, but it's Goodlatte. And it's got some of the other people in there, too, in terms of pronunciation, which I thought was semi-useful.
It is old, in a way.
Yeah, it's old. It's oldie but goodie.
Franklin Pierce? That's really too old. Get rid of that.
Oldie but good lot.
Okay.
So I think it's worthwhile, highlighting those kinds of divisions. And even if Armando does a more thorough job, I do think it's worthwhile highlighting what Goodlatte is doing, especially because in Davos, I think the person right off the plane right behind Trump was, of course, not Melania, because she didn't want to go.
Right.
Mark Meadows was there.
Well, he's an acceptable substitute.
So this particular article is a conservative one from Reason Magazine, and talks about the fact that basically the Dreamers are going to get screwed by the hardliners.
Okay.
Trump last night said he would support handing citizenship to Dreamers. For all you listeners out there, don't pay any attention to what that man says. That would make sense given that these people are essentially Americans without papers. They've grown up here. They speak English. They hold jobs, generating nearly $40 billion for the economy annually, pay taxes,
Yes.
have American families, and above all, have zero to little contact with their birthland. And I would add also the younger ones, and they are younger based on their demographic,
Yeah.
are the people who pay the money so that the old guys who vote against them can actually get their money from Social Security and Medicare.
Too. Yes. And, of course, all the complaints that the problem with immigrants is they need to assimilate. Well, okay,
Yeah.
these guys are assimilated. Well, still
Yeah,
brown.
but they're still brown.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we get that part. So it says here, it is hard to take Trump seriously.
Yes.
By the way, we're supposed to say jinx when we do that.
Everyone in the world has said it.
Jinx. But it's hard to take Trump seriously, not only because he has said conciliatory stuff many times only to walk it back when Chief of Staff John Kelly gives him the eye, but also because he's a fan of Virginia Republican Representative Bob Ventelate's Securing America's Future Act.
Okay.
The bill is the stuff of nativist wet dreams, and yet, or perhaps
Wow.
that's why, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen has offered it a ringing endorsement. She declared it reflects many of the policy principles and priorities of this administration, and the problem is, she's right.
Yes. And the problem, the president doesn't know that, but
Well, he doesn't know anything. The
Right.
bill doubles down on funding for Trump's idiotic wall, enhanced border security. Remember, this is a conservative paper here.
right.
And funding sanctuary jurisdictions. It also wants a 40% cut in legal, family-based immigration that Trump berates as chain migration. Maybe reason is more libertarian than conservative, but these days it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Conservative means that you're supporting Trump.
Right. They should
Oh,
change
we'll
it to
call-
reasons.
Yeah. Well, it's not a liberal magazine for
Right.
reasons, right?
That's true, but just to update the name a little bit. Because Reasons, that's the name of the new magazine.
Cause reasons. The bill doubles down on funding for Trump's idiotic wall, enhanced border security, and defunding of sanctuary jurisdictions, but it also wants a 40% cut in legal, family-based immigration that Trump berates as chain migration. It would end the diversity visa program, implement a biometric exit and entry system,
Oh, okay.
verify of all employers. Fortress America. And if this isn't devilish enough, consider its other details. It would make America's asylum program unusable, even for legitimate asylum seekers, who in the country is legally required to offer a hearing. It would make overstaying a visa for even a day a criminal rather than a civil offense, even if the government screws up renewal applications. I can't use the word they use, which it often does. And overnight, it would turn 4 million aliens into criminals. It would make it a criminal offense for legal permanent residents to not have their green cards on them at all times. And exactly what it would it offer in return? A path to citizenship, or at least permanent residency for all undocumented workers? No.
Oh.
A path to citizenship or permanent residency for all dreamers? No. A path to citizenship or permanent residency for at least all those who have DACA? No. It gives, we talked about this the other day, non-immigrant status on a renewable basis to a small slice of recipients who can meet its onerous eligibility criteria. Excluded would be dreamers who have already lost DACA, those who are under 15 years of age and therefore never covered by DACA, those who are over the age of 31 on June 2012, those who entered after 2007. Two-thirds of all dreamers would not qualify, not even if they're veterans. And the real kicker is the dreamers who do qualify, dreamers who do qualify would have, they use little tiny lettering in a mold, dreamers who do qualify would have to maintain income levels 125% of the poverty line or they'd be subject to deportation. So they'd criminalize poverty in this sweet land of liberty.
Yeah,
and
not even poverty.
even if this monstrosity doesn't get enacted in Toto, we're not in Kansas. Well, actually, we are in Kansas. He wants to turn it all into Kansas. It offers a chilling glimpse into the extreme lengths that nativists are prepared to go in order to cleanse the country of immigrants. Okay.
That's not good.
right? So Schumer talked about what he wants to do, but Schumer seems to have forgotten that for a bill to become law, it needs to pass not just in the Senate, but also the House.
Yes, it's so likely that he has forgotten that.
Got to go see that. And Representative Steve, go ahead.
King.
Elise.
Scalise. Oh, okay. Steve.
Elise Latte?
Steve Adore.
Scalise.
Okay.
It's already declared House Republicans would not be bound by any Senate bill. Many members of the misnamed Freedom Caucus are also opposed to a clean dreamer fix. So if Schumer and other immigration doves vote for a permanent spending bill and their dreamer bill gets slammed in the House, they'll have lost crucial leverage without rescuing dreamers from the tender mercies of GOP nativists. So there's every reason to expect that come March 5th, there'll be no deal. Dreamers will be screwed. If you hear any sound at the southern border, it'll be the sobs of families as ICE agents forcibly remove their loved ones from this land of the free and home of the brave. And that's not an unlikely result.
No.
Again, the whole problem with the shutdown and trying to get the GOP to do what you need is you don't have the votes. So as E.J. Dionne pointed out, Democrats lost the shutdown before it started. And if you want to fix it, you're going to have to reelect them or elect them in November. You got to get Democrats to outnumber Republicans, or this isn't going to go anywhere, no matter how long it takes and no matter how many dances they have. Simultaneously, and I think this was something that we've been watching play out over the last, 4 CRs now, is trying to get to an actual real budget. And what Armando was pointing out is that there's this Politico article, Budget Breakthrough and Reach, as Senate Democrats dropped the Dreamer part of it in order to get the budget and want to deal with Dreamers separately. And House Democrats aren't interested in doing that just yet. And even though they're in the minority and don't get to decide anything, the GOP House conference is so fractious they cannot pass anything on their own. There are people in the Freedom Caucus who simply will not vote for anything ever. And so you generally need Democratic votes to pass something after the Senate has done it. And if House Democrats are upset about not including Dreamers, that makes that more difficult. And so the context or the framework or the idea of what would happen with a budget deal, which essentially would be give a ton of money to the military, some money to domestic stuff, leave the Dreamers out, that's the contours of a deal, would basically screw the Dreamers. So Armando may have more details on that, but that what seems to be shaping up. And the question is, how do you get there? And then what do you do separately with the Dreamer question if, in fact, you separate it out from the budget?
That is a tough question.
And the answer is it's really hard to know because Trump says he wants to do something, but the GOP really doesn't want to do something, and it may all get kicked down the road till November in the election.
Yeah, how interesting that in the end, the guy who occupies I guess if you believe him, who might occupy the most sane Republican ground on DACA is the insane dotard that we can't wait to get rid of. The rest of the party is just open.
And Lindsey Graham. Graham may have the most reasonable, since he did negotiate stuff with Dick Durbin. The problem is Graham is pretty isolated from the rest of the Republican Party. And you could see, it's just so weird because you could see in real life Lindsey Graham on reality TV doing it live. Mm-hmm. The heck with it, we'll do it live. Buttering up Trump.
Oh, yes.
In order to try to get this done. And then it failed. And then Lindsey Graham showing his exasperation with the whole process of having to do that. So that must have been both a humiliating and a very frustrating scenario for him. But I think in his case on this issue, what you saw is what you get. I think that's exactly what he was doing and what he was thinking. And we all saw it.
Yes, so is it a reasonable position? I guess more so than we'll say pound for pound, he's much more reasonable.
He is a conservative, and the conservatives in the GOP have the votes in the Senate and the House. So we're never going to get what we want out of this scenario. The only way to change it is to make at least one of the houses majority Democrat. So we're never going to be happy with it. The question is going to be, how bad is it going to be? So the Robert Ventilate bill is awful. Anything less than that is better than that bill, but we're still going to hate it.
Yeah, very likely true. Although, well, it's going to be real interesting to watch how it develops and plays out now in the House. It occurs to me it might, I don't know whether they planned it this way. It might be too much, pardon me, too much to ask for to believe that they planned it this way, but it might just be a good way of helping shoulder the burden rather than lay it all on the Senate caucus each time and say that the filibuster is what's blocking things. All right, let's move it over to the House where there's no filibuster, and if the Republicans can't provide all the votes that they need to pass the thing, and the House Democrats just say, well, we're not going to help you do this lifting, not on this bill, and it fails, and we have to go through another round or perhaps another shutdown and another round of negotiations. At least this one, when they try to lay this one on the shoulders of the Senate, it just doesn't work. Everyone has watched it fail in the House.
Right. I'm going to leave the Russia stuff and the conspiracy issues, which are fun and kind of revealing, for after the break.
Yes, which is coming up.
But I think the whole large picture contour, big picture contour.
Large picture. I like that. That's a little
large
different.
Picture, a huge picture contour. It's just fascinating because you know that the American public side with Democrats on DACA. You know the Democrats have the side of the public when it comes to overall immigration policy, in the sense that they don't want a wall and they do want to be fairly reasonable. But the way it breaks down in terms of electoral college and districts is that that's not such a clear thing, and the GOP has the majority. So how that plays out remains to be seen.
We'll see after the break. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching KagroX or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We are still with Greg Dworkin after our brief coffee break. We handled that rather professionally. We figured out there's this great universal constant, at least here on Earth, that the two of us could be using: clocks. And he did it all by himself. He said, I know when the break's coming. I can see on the clock. Much better. I like the music, and those of us listening on the stream can enjoy the music together, but we make do any way we can. All right, where were we, Greg?
So we were just finishing up with the concept, and again, I hope Armando elaborates on this a little bit.
Yes.
That
keep hoping.
Liberals and progressives and people who want to do right by immigration policy are going to get screwed and slammed, and the question is how much and in what way, and hopefully he'll look into that in his segment. But I want to talk a little bit about the Russia stuff, and not so much in terms of what Mueller's doing, nobody knows, but rather a little bit about the cray-cray and give you an idea of what happens on conservative media when this kind of stuff bubbles up.
Okay, that's for the kids.
And I also thought you would find it interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, I was interested in the use of cray-cray. That's true.
So it's it's for the big kids too. So there's a New York Times story here. Trump says he is willing to speak under oath to Mueller.
Yes.
And as soon as he said that, Wilford Brinley, his lawyer, walked it back and said he didn't really mean to say that. He spoke hastily.
Yes, hurriedly.
Yeah, hurriedly. So we don't understand anything about that. Just like anything else that Trump says, don't pay any attention because it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
But this is from Mike Allen from Axios, and I thought it was interesting. Trump's everyone's dirty strategy.
Okay.
And this is the big picture, the huge picture, the large picture view, the 30,000 feet view. And if you look at it that way, you'll understand the secret society stuff a little bit better.
Wow, okay.
Right? We're getting a vivid preview, he writes, of how President Trump and his conservative allies will likely fight Robert Mueller if he accuses POTUS of obstructing justice by firing James Comey and pressuring the FBI, all of which are things that Trump did.
Yes.
Chief attack. Mueller, the roots of his investigation and the FBI aren't on the level. Right?
Oh,
they have
okay.
Since even before he took office. A longtime Trump political associate told me, using the Clinton Star playbook, kill the special investigator and obfuscate the charge. This is the government against the people's president. It's an easy narrative. Sounds like Roger Stone. Conservative media is exploding with stories, conspiracies about rampant corruption at the FBI and a secret society to undermine Trump and protect Hillary Clinton. Conservative columnist Noah Rothman on Twitter yesterday, Noah and I talk all the time on Twitter and follow him.
Oh.
I've done two, because he's the same conservatives. Every once in a while I want to know what's going on and what they're really thinking. And he doesn't represent the Republican base in any way and is often very critical of it. He says, I've done two conservative radio shows today playing a generally adversarial role in defense of the FBI. The grassroots is eating up the notion Trump is a victim of systemic corruption in law enforcement. Lots of attention is being paid to Trump's comments yesterday. He's willing to be interviewed under oath, and deservedly so. But Trump's key line from yesterday's impromptu West Wing availability might be this. Now they're saying, oh, well, did he fight back? You fight back. Oh, it's obstruction. Well, actually, it is. But that's for them to determine.
Yeah.
But honestly, it is. You can't do that. Oh, well, the cops just wanted to arrest me, so I fought back.
Right. Stop resisting, sir. That happens. That works for everybody else.
American would fight back, right?
Right. Sure, I guess so.
Available, including this here thing I have in my pocket that might go off.
He's a counterpuncher. Who did you counterpunch? Justice. Well, that's
so
obstructing
I think
justice.
There's a flaw with that theory, just like there's a flaw that he's the people's president. But that's where they're coming from.
Okay.
This Sean Hannity continued to build a narrative of an anti-Trump strain in the FBI. Must be the one who published all the stuff about Clinton's emails and was talking to Rudy Giuliani. Or maybe I got that back.
Oh, yeah.
When he reported this game-changing development last night, the Department of Justice has started to recover some of the 5 months' worth of missing text messages between FBI agent Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Thing is, there's other stories out there that, and Dana Milbank has that. Fox debunks its own conspiracy theory. Thousands of FBI cell phones affected by a glitch that lost the Strzok-Page texts. So there were thousands of FBI cell phones. It wasn't just theirs. So it's not like Rosemary Wood's 18-minute disappearing stuff.
I see.
It's like we lost power and the whole East Coast went down. You see, it's a conspiracy to hide your house.
I guess.
By turning. Okay, fine.
What is this photo that's... Oh, I see. This is This is Dana Milbank's profile photo. This is Sergeant Pepper guy. I thought, is this a story about Sebastian Gorka again?
The everyone's dirty scenario, Mike Allen writes, is less a coordinated strategy with careful planning involved than it is a reflection of Trump's genuine belief the intelligence community is out to get him. Well, anybody who's actually trying to follow the law is out to get you, Donald. I mean,
that's the way it is.
Right-wing base authentically believes the same and sees the missing FBI text messages as evidence there's a deep state out to get Trump, and behind the scenes, Trump has been obsessing over the texts.
It doesn't have to be that deep, by the way. But
Jim
okay.
tops the... All right. Remember, one of the reasons Trump bonded so tight with Mike Flynn was their shared penchant for conspiracy thinking.
True.
He'd used many hours by Trump's side on the campaign to fill his ears with his bitter analysis of Obama's intelligence apparatus. So Trump has created, quote, reasonable doubt, end quote, about Mueller's investigation among a significant portion of the GOP base. Only them. But them. Enough so he may already have won his case with the jury that matters most to him and his political future. I don't think that's right, but that's, there'll be some people within the base that see that, others not so much when other information comes out in a more objective way. But between now and then, if you're only talking about dueling narratives, it's true.
Okay.
So GOP lawmakers seize on secret society text to cast doubt on the FBI. So now you have people like Ron Johnson getting on board.
Yes.
And claiming there's a secret society based on that text you mentioned,
of course,
from ABC News, that there was a nothing burger there. But then Johnson had to walk it back.
Yeah.
And he backtracked on Wednesday, saying he had merely heard about the existence of a secret society and didn't have direct evidence of such a rump organization within the FBI. All I said, I read those words and those texts. That's their term. Secret society. I've heard there was a group of managers in the FBI that were holding meetings off-site. That's all I know. Can you imagine? Managers holding meetings?
Not meetings.
That's outrageous.
Crazy. Off-site.
You know what's outrageous? What's outrageous? Since I work in corporate world sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what's outrageous? When they make us go to those meetings instead of actually doing our jobs. That's outrageous. Is that what he's talking about? No. He's talking about the fact that managers have meetings. Dude, managers' jobs. You know what it is? You know what's a manager's job? Interfere with what you're trying to do some of the time, and the way they figure out how to do that is at meetings.
Oh, well, yeah. But he more than backtracked. I mean, the guy, his first statements was about, we heard from witnesses, we have informants that say this.
I'm telling you, it is embarrassing what he did.
Yes. Resigned.
He's embarrassed. It's like, oh my goodness, are you really trying to compete for dumbest guy in Congress? You have Ted Yoho, and you have Louis Gohmert, and you're trying to compete with them?
Those guys are keeping low profiles these days.
Well, they're getting out dumbed.
That's it. Maybe they're just hiding their heads in shame. What happened to my dumb crown?
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, on CNBC, the ever wonderful John Harwood, I really like him. He's one of my favorite reporters. Bill Kristol takes on Fox News Tucker Carlson in an interview.
Okay. Did a fire break out in the studio by any chance?
Really interesting. Well, I don't know, but might have to. Woke Bill Kristol is really interesting.
Gas can.
It's like woke, Jennifer Rubin.
It's crazy out there, kids. All right.
Bill Kristol was often a guest on Fox News, but he says he appeared gradually less on the network after he declined to do something for Roger Ailes that he didn't define.
Oh, my.
I'm not touching that, but I'm just reporting. Now Fox is sort of 75% of it seems to be birther-like coverage of different issues, Kristol tells CNBC's John Harwood.
Now.
Kristol criticizes Fox News host Tucker Carlson, saying what he does on TV is, quote, close now to racism. White, I don't know if it's racism exactly, but ethno-nationalism of some kind, let's call it.
Racism.
Yeah. So, Harwood, the development of conservative media, and Kristol said, that's, I think become really a problem in the last few years. Fox was always, of course, somewhat conservative. But it was one thing when it was a somewhat conservative alternative to somewhat liberal MSNBC and to some degree CNN.
Yes.
I was on Fox for 10 years, from 2002 to 2012. I think it was good. It was a little tilted. Sure. But now it's sort of 75% of it seems to be this birther-like coverage of different issues. That's been bad. And if you put that together with the social media and the segmentation of everyone into bubbles, and I think there's some truth to the criticism. Why do you think that happened to Fox? Well, I don't know. There was a gradual increasing of recklessness. The second term of Obama, I think, was a shock. I think one can't underestimate. This was a shock to the system. This was like we're losing our country for a certain chunk of Fox viewers, as opposed to that was an unfortunate election of Obama, but the Tea Party won and we, the Republicans, won the House. Did that strike you as an organic reaction to events as opposed to a marketing decision, said Harwood? So I think it's both, said Kristol. On one other thing, the Obama administration was more left-wing in 2013, the second term, than the first term. So I think things objectively changed some. In other words, he stopped trying to cooperate with Republicans who refused to cooperate with him. It's my view. The mood of Republicans changed some, he says, and Fox News maybe saw an opportunity, changed some, and then the whole thing together. I do now feel we're in a different world. Look, Tucker Carlson, and this is Kristol talking.
Yeah.
He began at the Weekly Standard. Tucker Carlson was a great young reporter. He's one of the most gifted 24-year-olds I've seen in the 20 years I've edited the magazine. No. His copy was sort of perfect at age 24. He had always a little touch of Buchananism, I would say paleoconservatism, but that's very different from what he's become now. And then he makes the comment it's close to racism.
Yeah, that's a reversion to form, not different. But okay, that's Bill Kristol.
A combination of dumbing down, as you said earlier, and stirring people's emotions in a very unhealthy way. And Harwood says, well, as somebody who knows Tucker, who hired Tucker, have you talked to him? And Kristol shakes his head, no.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I want to go back to one thing Harwood says, but this finishes up. You mentioned a disagreement with Ailes that caused you to leave Fox. What was the disagreement? And Kristol said, I wasn't going to talk about it. So he asked me to do something. It was nothing to do with anything that was on the air. He wasn't trying to tell me what to say. He wanted me to call up people here in Washington and blackball somebody who would run afoul of him on a totally separate matter. And it seemed kind of crazy to me, and I wasn't going to do it. I didn't know what happened, but I wasn't going to just take his word for it and start calling about some other person I slightly knew and say, don't hire him. So I said no, and suddenly I'm off the air.
What do you know? It's like there's a secret society over there or something.
Yeah, something like that. So meanwhile, while all this is going on, I threw into the queue here just because I want to show you a little bit about how Fox News, Ron Johnson, Trump, the staffers that aid and abet Trump's delusional thinking are all aid and abetted and given comfort by Russia.
They are?
This is a piece from from Secret Society's flawed FBI probes. The Russiagate narrative is imploding.
Right, according to RT.
According to RT.
Got it.
Okay, so the point of that story, the anti-Russia narrative is collapsing under the growing weight of evidence pointed to a concerted internal effort on the part of U.S. establishment to sabotage the Trump presidency. That's their lead.
Good idea.
Okay. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And yeah, it's RT and nobody pays attention, except that the bots who are supporting released the memo from Devin Nunes, the concocted nonsense that we haven't even touched on. It's just all of a piece. It's all the same. And it's really fascinating when you step back and look and see how they're all intertwined and they all support each other. Basically, Fox and Friends says stuff, then Trump sees it in the morning, then he tweets about it, and then his lackeys in Congress start to talk about it. Then RT picks up the story, and then they start to amplify it, and then the Russian bots get out there and get on the Fox News sites and Reddit and wherever else they live, Facebook, Twitter, etc., and push the same story, which gets on to Fox and Friends, and the cycle starts all over again.
Pretty much.
So that's a good example of how that happens, but it can get worse than that. And this is a little piece from the American Association of University Professors, which I thought was fascinating. And I thought I might leave this for you for more detail because it's really scary.
Okay.
But the title of the piece is, and I know I gave you a ton of pieces, so it's in there, but I'll throw it at the bottom.
I see it. I think I've got it. It's right underneath that RT one.
Yeah, I tried to organize them today.
Oh, that seems perfect.
And put them together. It's called A New Reality, the Far Right's Use of Cyber Harassment Against Academics, a first-hand account by a targeted faculty member. And what it is it talks about how this guy said something that upset the trolls and how they decided to dox him, how they decided to attack him, things that would or wouldn't work, but their conversations about how could they Photoshop stuff, change what he said, and then start sending information to where he works in order to get him fired. That was the whole thing. They wanted a scalp, and they were trying to figure out what they could do to get him fired. Yeah. He's a research guy. Maybe they could get a hold of the journals that he publishes in and tell them that they're a former student who saw him fake data.
Yeah.
I mean, really nasty stuff. And it's a first-hand account of how that works, and I just thought you might find that interesting.
I do find that interesting. I've heard similar stories, and sometimes there's an ideological basis to it. He said something liberal in class, and it upsets him. Just as often, it is some jackass college student who gets a C in the course and says that's it. It's because he's liberal, or at least I have a cadre of troll friends who I can motivate with that as a complaint. let's get this guy fired. He gave me a C. I argued with him that I should get a B, and he wouldn't agree and change the grade. Let's target him. Let's have the cops at his house. Let's charge him with having child pornography on his computers. Whatever we can do.
Right. Exactly.
Fantastic.
So I just thought that the whole thing was of a piece, and it really runs the spectrum between Ron Johnson saying something stupid and on the one end of the spectrum to Fox News and the concerted efforts to support ethno-nationalism in the middle to this cyber harassment against academics. And you step back and look at the whole big picture, and it's concerted, it's deep, it's broad, it goes on all the time, and if you don't get out of your own liberal bubble, you don't see it, but it's there. If you stay in your liberal bubble, you do see it, because all you have to do is read the comments on Twitter, for example, when women are attacked for saying something sensible.
True. Yeah, I mean, that was the whole issue at the heart of Gamergate.
For example,
you just told us the story of the same side. You say it's a concerted thing. And it is, and it's not limited to loser idiots in college. You just told us the story of Roger Ailes trying to get Bill Kristol in on the same act.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I thought that Kristol interview was just so interesting.
Perfect, and I think that it's true. So both the responsible adults of Serious Land are involved in this, as well as greasy losers in college as well. Fantastic.
And with that, very happy, cheery thought. I think I'll finish for today. I'll let Armando pick up on what's going on in Congress and why it's going to be bad. But in the meantime, we still have an election. Everything that we do, everything that we say really has to be pointed toward November. We can do this. We did it in Virginia. We did it in Alabama. Those women's marches that didn't get covered by the media are incredibly important. There was a Vox piece about how it was probably the single largest American protest ever, which I think is of importance. Those folks not only vote, they run for office. Yes. And need support and should get support. And with that, I'll leave you for today and this week. This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. It's so interesting after like 3 or 4 years or 10 years on the air with you, or however long it's been, we figured out clocks, what they do and how they
Yeah, they're essential to daily life. I've heard all the kids are using them.
You kids these days, if you only would help us, the tech work behind the scenes here, we'd be so far ahead.
Take care,
and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Okay, very good. Thanks a lot, Greg. Good start for today. And, I guess we'll have to follow up on whatever looming disaster there is in store for DACA. And you're certainly welcome to join us at any time, Armando, to pick up on that. Yeah, this is going to be tough. I wanna check up on what's in this article. I haven't read it, but it's not. I don't feel very confident that we're going to be happy at the end of this article. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to have a lot of explaining to do, and we might as well start with our own explaining. Because yesterday and the day before, there was some. We were holding out for the possibility that there was some brilliant plan to reposition everything such that we would be at an advantage in the next round. And now it's, actually we lost. Pretty much everybody who said that things were falling apart or was using terminology like the very scientific terminology of the Senate Democrats caved. Well, were they right? So, good question. I still maintain that there's the possibility that they might be just shifting the blame game as between the two houses, or it may just be coincidence. It happens to work out that way, and the House Democratic Caucus just wants to take a different approach to things and doesn't worry as much about the shutdown. And although that's just an organic way of having the blame shift. We know basically that Senate Democrats, because they run statewide, and a lot of them are, of course, running for re-election in red-ish, states across the country in 2018, senators are just by nature that much more cautious and that much more worried about appealing to independents or people that they think want them to be quote unquote reasonable, and House members are much more free to reflect some deeper blue bases from where they're from, and they don't necessarily like being handed garbage. I know they hate being handed garbage by the Senate, and it might be a way for them to turn the tables for once and say, I know you want to be cautious, but that doesn't mean that we're going to help you. You be as cautious as you want. I'm not accepting this garbage as the bill going forward. We're just not going to do it. Now, if they can get their act together on the other side, and they may very well do that, that's probably how this whole thing concludes, is Ryan convinces the Republican conference in the House that nothing else is going to be forthcoming from the Senate. And to the extent that they don't want a shutdown, and no one ever really knows whether or not House Republicans care if there's a shutdown. But eventually, I think they all have a sense that if the government were really to shut down and stay shut for weeks on end, months on end, in fact, it would begin to cause the kind of problems that would be embarrassing even to them, and that's a very high threshold. And that they might then be subject to having their arm twisted by the House Republican leadership and just say, all right, well, I've lost this round. I lose every round. Freedom Caucus very frequently does lose rounds. And so they might say, all right, we'll take what they've got, and Republicans alone will pass this thing in the House and let the Senate or the House Democrats hang out there by themselves. But to the extent that they stay fractured, well, okay, then you own. It's not a bad way to transfer ownership of the shutdown to Republicans. Look, in the House, Democrats say, we don't want anything to do with this thing. We can't filibuster, so you can't blame it on that. But we're not helping. You guys have the majority. There's no such thing as a filibuster in the House. If you want this, own it. Pass it. That's not a bad strategy. Do I know for sure that that's the Schumer strategy? No, I don't. Could it just be that he lucks out? Sure. But I mean, the man has been in the Congress for a very, very long time. The idea that he forgot about the House seems very unlikely. He used to serve there. He knows the dynamics as between the two houses. And that's not a bad idea at all, right? Where you have nervous Democratic senators. And again, one reminder that caucus leaders, both in the House and the Senate, are mainly tasked with the job of keeping their constituent members happy. Senators from Senate Democratic Caucus, House Democratic Caucus, you got to run interference for them. And that happens much more frequently in the Senate than it does in the House, because there's just fewer moving pieces in the conference or the caucus in the Senate than there are in the House. But when vulnerable incumbent Democrats facing immediate reelection campaigns in red states need cover, the majority or minority leader, rather, in this case, the Democratic caucus leader in the Senate has to take that seriously and has to offer some of that comfort, and they know that, and it wouldn't be a bad way of doing it at all to say, all right, if everybody is convinced, and even if he isn't, and Schumer's likely convinced that this is the case, that these guys need cover for whatever reason. We could argue all day about whether or not it makes for reasonable cover, whether there's cover to be had, whether there really are voters in these red states that are willing to say, well, I'm basically Republican leaning, but I'll accept reelecting this moderate to conservative Senate Democrat because he was quote unquote unreasonable, or reasonable rather, on the shutdown. He didn't vote against President Trump. I don't really think that they give them that much credit. They would just say, I'd rather have somebody who votes with Trump, the conservative Republican. And I can't believe that there are huge numbers of people of conservative leaning / independent or quote unquote independent voters in red states who say, as between the Fox News quoting conservative Republican who says he supports President Trump and this conservative Democrat who occasionally is able to point to something and say, I didn't explicitly oppose President Trump in all of this. Do they, are there really enough voters out there who say things like, well, that was awfully reasonable. I like that you kind of went right down the middle of the road there. I mean, if you're getting your news from Fox, you want somebody who's going to parrot Fox. You don't want somebody who's, out there saying, well, it's not that Fox is 100% wrong, but the 30% of the time I was willing to vote to get out of the way of Fox's rhetoric and President Trump. I don't care. I want somebody who'll do that all the time. Oh. So, I don't know. I can't really endorse the strategy, but I can endorse the idea that it would be wise to pass the hot potato of blocking any budget deal because it doesn't include a DACA solution over to the House. If they're willing to do it, then by all means, make use of that. I would. But I might be retrofitting a strategy to the situation. But that's not the worst thing in the world either. As long as I'm giving hints, at least, at an explainable or understandable dynamic that might possibly make some sense of what's going on, and somehow explain how people who could say, I'm standing with you, and then not standing with you, could be doing not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it could just flip and say, screw the Dreamers, I'm with Trump on this, and that might do more to save their asses in their states than appearing to look reasonable, but they're unwilling to do that, at least. Hopefully, that stays the case. We'll be right back after one more break. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Finished with our top of the hour break, and I know I finished out on the way out saying that we were going to take that one more break. One more break right now. We're saving another fantastic break for later on in the conversation around the bottom of the hour. But okay, so fine. There were two more breaks. Big deal. Okay, Armando has been waiting in the wings, asking if he might discuss this situation after that top of the hour break. So yes, we can absolutely do that. And in the meantime, we can take a look at the background material here, the article in Politico. Budget talks progress as Senate Dems drop Dreamer demand. About the worst headline you can imagine for the Democratic base. But it does go on to say, but House Democrats may not support a spending deal that lacks relief for young undocumented immigrants. Heather Cagle, Sarah Ferris, Burgess Everett, who always everybody wants to call, I'm sure, Burgess Meredith. It's the second Burgess I've ever encountered. But let's see, this piece from Politico, illustrated with a photo of Dick Durbin looking sorry and bleak. Anyway, Senate Democrats are willing to drop their demand that relief for Dreamers be tied to any long-term budget agreement. A potential boost for spending talks, anyway. But, oops, I've lost my place here. But one that could face opposition from their House counterparts. Okay, so that's just the setup, the opening lead of the article. Armando is here, presumably to discuss this, but I guess you've got some very specific questions about procedure.
Read it to set the stage, and then I can ask you my procedural questions.
The shift comes in response to the deal struck by Senate leaders Monday to reopen the government and begin debate on an immigration bill next month. Meanwhile, budget negotiators are expressing optimism that a 2-year agreement to lift stiff caps on defense and domestic spending is increasingly within reach. That would be sequester busting, I guess. We're viewing immigration and spending on separate terms because they are on separate paths. Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin said Tuesday. Now, that, of course, had been the argument that Republicans were making all along, and so to, I guess, come around to that position is rather something of a concession. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's procedural concession, is that what we're going to ask about, means we've got a deadline and a process, Durbin added. That, to me, is a significant step forward. It's not everything I wanted, that's for sure, but it's a step forward. But House Democrats have signaled that they are not ready to go along with a long-term budget deal without a fix to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that President Donald Trump is ending. We are insisting that these things be in the same negotiation, and there's no reason not to insist on it, even though I understand that they're separate issues, but so what? I want to talk about them. That if you're a party to the negotiation, you get to do that. We're insisting that these things be in the same negotiation, said a senior House Democratic aide. To us, what's important is, are these talks linked or not linked? To us, they are linked. The division among Democrats is complicating negotiations as lawmakers in both parties face intense pressure and a 2-week time crunch to show progress on government funding, immigration, and a raft of other issues that have resulted in the government operating on stopgap spending bills since September. Both parties are eager for a long-term budget agreement, with GOP defense hawks furious about uncertainty for the Pentagon and liberal Democrats concerned about deep cuts to domestic programs. But any legislation to boost spending by upwards of $250 billion over 2 years would likely need broad bipartisan backing in both chambers, as House conservatives have already hinted they'll balk. They found their principles, I guess. Senator Patty Murray, Washington, another member of the Democratic leadership, said that although she would prefer a deal to protect young undocumented immigrants be part of budget negotiations, the agreement reached with McConnell could make that impossible. The Kentucky Republican has said the Senate would turn to an immigration bill only if the government is still funded, and few Democrats seem to want another shutdown. February 8th, we're going to have another stopgap bill, but we have to have that budget agreement in order to move forward. That's the goal, Murray said. And then the deal is that if DACA is not part of that, that will be the next thing considered. Everyone's first preference is to get it all done by the 8th, a Senate Democratic aide said on Wednesday. We haven't speculated on what happens if it doesn't all come together. If Democrats are indeed willing to deal on spending caps without a firm commitment on DACA, it would represent a significant shift in budget talks, which have stalled for months over immigration. I think everybody has a pretty general idea about where it's going to end up, but this has been, again, another casualty of the DACA issue, that they've refused to conclude those. Senate Majority Whip John Cornyn of Texas said Wednesday, when asked how close leaders are to a spending caps deal, there's going to have to be some agreement on the spending caps, I believe, by February 8th, because I'm skeptical whether the House in particular will vote for another continuing resolution. That's the dilemma created by our Democratic colleagues, Cornyn added, of course, ignoring the fact that Republicans can do it alone. They just can't agree. They don't want that, so they're not doing it. Without a solution for Dreamers, Democrats have largely refused to acknowledge that they are making progress on a spending deal, but sources familiar with the talks say the distance between the parties has been narrowing for weeks. Negotiators have already agreed to a massive boost to the Pentagon's budget. While the figures are still in flux, multiple sources say Congress would raise military spending by at least $70 billion above the caps for fiscal year 2018 and $80 billion for 2019. That huge increase, much more than the White House's most recent budget request, interestingly enough, would deliver assurance to the GOP's long-suffering defense hawks. They win everything. The long-suffering defense hawks, wow, who have grudgingly voted for 4 short-term funding bills this fiscal year alone. My word, how they have gone out of their way. What remains is how much to spend on domestic programs, including everything from Homeland Security to the Department of Education. Republican leaders have pitched a deal that would boost domestic agencies' budgets by $45 billion to $50 billion over the caps for the next 2 years, sources say. Democrats, however, insist on at least $60 billion, and I guess that's cumulative, by the way. So $80 billion for Defense Department and $60 billion is the Democratic demand. Republicans are willing to go to 45 billion over the rest of the government for you guys, but 80 billion, twice that for defense, because the defense hawks are suffering so badly. Under current spending caps, military funding would be limited to $549 billion in fiscal year 2018. Someone get me the world's tiniest military band violin. Domestic funding, now, mind you, I got to read this all together again. So under current spending caps, military, $549 billion in 2018. Domestic funding, everything else, $516 billion less. But, so 50% of the spending that we're going to do, 51%, I guess, we'll just round up, goes to the military, 49% for every other thing the government does. As Democrats have insisted on parity between defense and non-defense spending boosts, Republican negotiators are eyeing creative budgetary maneuvers to get there. Republican leaders are proposing tens of billions of dollars in additional domestic spending that wouldn't count toward the caps, sources say. That would likely include billions in emergency funding to address the nation's opioid epidemic. No, it wouldn't. Which both parties have called a priority, and only one party is telling the truth about. Tom Cole, an ally of House Republican leadership, said in an interview Wednesday that opioid funding would be included for sure, likely in a way that wouldn't count towards the caps. I guess we're almost at the end here. Negotiators are also floating potential changes in mandatory spending, another budgetary gimmick, to further dodge the strict caps on discretionary spending. That could mean programs with bipartisan support like VA Choice, the private sector healthcare program for veterans, would be moved to the mandatory side of the budget for good. By the way, just side note, mandatory spending for private sector healthcare program. No, don't allow it. But we'll do it, no problem. Anyway, there's so close on these numbers, said Bill Hoagland, a former top Senate staffer now with the Bipartisan Policy Center. Publicly, though, House and Senate spending talks have stalled since Thanksgiving, when Senate and House Democrats declared they wouldn't agree on spending until Dreamers were helped. In some way, the most important budget negotiations are the negotiations on DACA, added Cole, a senior appropriator who writes the House's Health, Education, and Labor spending bill. The phrase used to me is, we're 6 inches away from a spending deal. It's just simply the DACA issue and the immigration question. That doesn't clear up a great deal of things, but does bring up a bunch of other interesting points along the way, though. I'm very concerned about the idea of scheduling as mandatory spending money spent on the private sector VA health program. Like, really? That you're just going to lock in a pipeline to private pockets as mandatory spending going forward? Well, I'm sure that's a pipe dream for Republicans. They've been looking for that for a long time for their donors, but it's a huge mistake. But that wasn't the mistake you wanted to talk about, I'm sure.
Well, actually, it would play into my idea of the mistake. But first, procedurally, what does it mean to pass a budget?
An actual budget?
I'm assuming this is a budget that they're talking about.
I don't think so. I think
what
this
are they
is
talking about? What is this that they're discussing?
This would be an appropriations bill. This is one of the problems with sending the reporters out to deal with both reporters and members of Congress and lay people who just sort of use these terms interchangeably. You know, the budget, of course, being the blueprint document, internal document inside the Congress that essentially lays out how much budgetary authority the different appropriations committees, subcommittees will have. How much money do they have to pass out to the various programs they fund? And that's it's a different document. But the money we spend on things, appropriations bills that actually, release that, cash, give you the paperwork to go draw on the Treasury to pay for those things is what a CR is. And so that's what they're working on. And although they may want to lift the budget caps, that's something that can be done, in any bill, but you want to do that ahead of the planning for the next budget. They're very closely related items, but sometimes when you get loose with the terms, it makes it difficult to answer procedural questions, like if there's questions about whether or not something can be filibustered. Well, a real budget, no. An appropriations bill that enacts that budget, yes. Which one are we dealing with here? I'm not sure. I mean, a CR would be an appropriations bill, but they might also be talking about negotiating terms for the settlement of the next budget document, which would, of course, really be for fiscal year. They really need to begin working on fiscal year 2019 at this point. But
well, see, that's I think this is important, and if you could remind the audience, what's the significance of it being a budget as opposed to an appropriations bill?
Well, a couple of different things, including one, you can't carry a budget with you to the Treasury and say, give me this amount of money. Is it, no, show me the appropriations bill for that. For people who have dealt with, I don't know, military style or perhaps, a corporate style procurement issues, for instance, right? If you show up at the, whether you're going to a corporate, the accountants and ask for money to buy pencils for the office, or whether you're heading to the quartermaster to requisition something, and they say, you got to bring me the right paperwork for it. Well, it was it's the CO's intention that I have this equipment. Yeah, well, there's paperwork in triplicate. Bring me the paperwork and you can have the munitions. But other than that, it's someone else's intentions. You're bringing me, the budget tells me, yeah, next year we're going to get around to issuing the paperwork in an appropriations bill. You're not going to get any bank funds with the budget. But,
okay, and I think that's significant in terms of the DACA negotiation in this sense, because if there's a budget but there isn't an appropriations bill, then it's not funded, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so agreeing to a budget isn't the last card that you have, or is it? Or let's put it this way: is an appropriations bill subject to filibuster?
Yeah,
it is.
Yes.
All right. So if I agree to a budget, I haven't given away the game. I can agree to the budget, and then I can filibuster the appropriations.
You certainly, you can certainly do that. I mean, right, agreeing to a budget, I mean, it gives away a lot of leverage, and there's ground rules that are going to hem you in. But since you can't filibuster the budget, stop thinking about it, and two, you're going to lose. You're in the minority. The ground rules of how much money, the maximums available for various budget functions by the different departments and the programs they administer is set by the budget. After that, then you fight about whether or not to fully fund it, or whether or not to make cuts or what have you. And that's done both in the authorizing bills, if you actually bother to pass any, and the appropriations process too. It's
famous 13 bills, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit needlessly redundant, but the idea is to, slice and dice the power up a little bit so that one person, or one small group of people isn't strictly all alone in charge of passing out the public treasury.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess the context I'm trying to figure out procedurally is what is given away if you agree to a budget with regards to DACA negotiations. And there are things that are being given away. And I guess under the old rules, the old norms, as opposed to rules, norms, that if you put it in the budget, it's hard to then argue later against it in the appropriation, correct?
Yeah.
I mean,
look, this is part of our plan.
This was part of our plan, but, all the rules are all the norms are out the window. So I could agree to a budget for show, completely planning to not agree to it in the appropriation.
Yes. I guess you could do that.
Well, again, this is in the context of the DACA negotiation. And there's questions here, here they're caving. Wasn't this the big stick they had? And in fact, there was, whenever I heard people talking about, they have other bottlenecks, the budget caps and the debt ceiling and every other pressure point for Democrats to force a DACA vote.
Okay. And
I just was trying to figure out what exactly you're giving up here. Democrats being Democrats, they'll still play by the norms when the other team is playing Calvin ball, so they're idiots about that. So at this point, I'm not sure I would do this. I certainly wouldn't have announced that I'm not tying it to the DACA. But, maybe they feel that that's the right play in the Senate for the necessary moderate votes to get something done. Not being in the internal Senate politics of how this works in terms of how they negotiate with each other, I'm not sure. But I would say that the optics for the base are bad, and Democrats are bad at giving the base something to hold on to. But practically speaking, if I understand you correctly, procedurally, this doesn't do the funding, and you can always say, well, in the appropriation, but you haven't done DACA, so I'm not doing it.
The bill that they'd be working on that they would look to finish by February 8th would be the appropriation.
That's what I would have thought, because, unless this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
So when they're saying budget, they really mean appropriation here, probably.
I think so, although they're also saying that they would include in the appropriate. Ordinarily, you're not supposed to do this much legislating in an appropriations bill. When under regular order, back in the good old days, when everything was working according to plan, having mentioned that they sliced up the spending, the full spending power into little pieces and passed it out to as many members of Congress as they could, so that everybody gets to feel important, but also so that no one cabal can run away with the public purse. But in back in the day when that happened and was followed, what was the normal procedure, you wouldn't allow for legislating in an appropriations bill. An appropriations bill was supposed to be, as nearly as possible, strictly a list of programs and numbers that would be matched to it. That's what made it so boring to read an appropriations bill. And that was it. And whenever people would try to slip legislative language into it, the temptation was always there, because appropriations bills were considered must-pass bills, because if you don't pass them, there's a government shutdown, or at least a partial government shutdown. If you pass 8 out of the 13 and then run out of time, the remaining, whatever the number is, 5 departments shut down. You have a partial government shutdown. Those departments are closed. The departments that are funded are open. They do have that from time to time, but because we never finish any of the bills, it always ends up being a total government shutdown these days. But that used to be a huge objection. Because it's a must-pass bill, it was viewed as a very tempting target. Let me hang this very narrowly popular, or in fact possibly extremely unpopular piece of legislation on this. They would refer to it as like decorating a Christmas tree. You hang that ornament on there, and so this policy issue that's been a pet-ish thing for an appropriator for a long time, and he couldn't get it passed. You hang it on the appropriations bill. So you either shut down this department or you pass my dumb piece of legislation. So they ended up making rules that there would be a point of order available, and you would have to garner a supermajority to waive a point of order against legislating in an appropriations bill. Now, because they're CRs and it's all last minute and a lot of the stuff is secret and it's always a high stakes game, they add all kinds of legislative language to these appropriations bills. So they could very well be saying, okay, part of our deal on February 8th is that we're going to lift the spending caps that would ordinarily impact how we do an actual budget for the next fiscal year cycle. So they could be, and this is where the gray area comes in, they could very well be including legislative language in an appropriations bill that deals with how they'll approach the next actual budget, mashing all three parts of the process back together in one, which, again, they were separated for good government reasons. But since we don't have a good government anymore, what the hell? Sure. So you do it all at once because it's an emergency.
Well, let me refocus my attention on, and hopefully your attention, on how this is being presented as a concern. And I was concerned. If it is appropriating, then the threat of a shutdown on February 8th would be out the window, because then you've appropriated, and frankly, long-term appropriated. And that's it. DACA doesn't have the people who want DACA, who would want to use a shutdown as leverage, have thrown it away. If they've not only thrown it away, they've thrown it away in a way that's given everything the Republicans would want. So theoretically, those poor, long-suffering defense spending hawks,
right?
The mandatory spending for their cronies in the VA.
Right, not even at the VA, in the private sector, contracting
the private
with
sector,
the VA.
Whatever they've been wanting forever.
Yeah. So
you're basically wrapping up a ton of chips in here and basically putting them in the trash can. If this includes appropriation, right?
Wait a second. Let's restate that again.
Okay, let me try again. Yeah. I want DACA.
Yeah.
I'm the Democrat.
Right.
You're the Republicans. You're one of those long-suffering defense hawks.
Yes. Where's my money?
All right. And you said, you want that? I'm telling you. You want that? You got to give me DACA. And you say, no.
Right.
And I say, okay, I'll give you what you want. You're not giving me anything. Thank you.
Well, yeah.
That's to put it very colloquially. I mean, if there's nothing more to do, I've given you everything that you'd want in a budget. Plus, I'm giving you the appropriation for the CR, not for the CR, but we're in lieu of a CR.
Yeah.
What do I have to negotiate DACA with?
Well, at the moment, nothing.
Well, let's go back to what Greg has talked about in his appearances this week. Good lads bill. Ending, quote, chain migration, which is actually the family repatriation. No more TPS, or no TPS, which is a temporary protected status that covers hundreds of thousands of people from difficult countries who had to leave their countries because of problems there. What else? There's no pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. It's just going to be, okay, here's a 3-year green card. Take it or leave it. And I say, leave it. And they say, okay, fine. I've got what I wanted. See you later. I don't understand that as a negotiating tactic, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
what am I getting out of this? I guess
depends.
I can increase domestic spending? Good.
Maybe. Maybe not. I guess it largely will depend on what's in this February 8th deal and how long does it last. I'm not certain what this is meant to be. I'm sure that Republicans are hoping to come away with a February 8th deal that funds the government through the balance of fiscal year 2018, which would end at the end of September, calendar year 2018.
Okay.
And I guess if they got that, that would remove appropriations from the roster of bottlenecks in which you could make DACA demands. But it's not. It's not.
But
the
doesn't
last
it do
place.
more than that, David? Doesn't it also give them increased defense spending through September?
Yes, that it would, or it would also address, like we said, the caps for the next round of budget negotiations. Although, quite honestly, they were likely to get that independent of DACA. The joke of long-suffering defense hawks is that they've never suffered, ever.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're talking about. They always get what they want, and there's always plenty of Democratic votes to help them do that. There's lots of Democratic defense hawks. We're about 15 seconds away from taking our next break. We can, of course, come back to we'll stay on the issue and try and sort this out, because I know a lot of you are. We got to get into the weeds in order for you to know how to think, what you think. We'll be right back after this break.
I think we really do need to understand it.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We'll continue trying to sort out the leverage and lack of leverage that still exists in this year's round. And I guess that's another thing we got to bring up is an appropriations bills last for a year. We do them every year. This same leverage point exists once, annually. Essentially, I don't know whether the political climate and the upcoming elections argue for or against trying to leverage the situation on DACA again. But of course, if true to his word, and there's really no reason to believe ordinarily that Donald Trump is going to be true to his word, except if he can hurt people, and he can do that here. But if true to his word, he begins deporting people well in advance of the next available pressure point, at least if it's an appropriations pressure point. Again, that does arise annually, but it would arise too late for the current crop of dreamers, if that's the only pressure point you've got. So when we left off, we were also talking about, it may be a possibility that the Senate Democrats say we just have too many nervous incumbent red state Democrats who, for some reason, still believe in the magic that goes, the magic/logic that goes, if I jump out of the way of the enormously unpopular Republican president, independents who are really Republicans in my red state will vote for me because of how reasonable I was, as opposed to, well, they'll have another choice on the ballot, and that will be somebody who says, I will never give you headaches with respect to what I will do when President Trump asks for something. I will do it. You won't have to worry about whether I'm reasonable or not. I promise to be unreasonable. I will be a lackey to President Trump. Wouldn't you rather have that? And in red states, they say, I would. That's great. Thank you.
I guess there's two ways of looking at it. But here's the bottom line. If you care about DACA, and this is the context of these, what people are thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
DACA expires March 5th. And you can't punt to September without something. I mean,
right.
If Trump said, I'm issuing a new executive order extending DACA to October 1st, 2018, and that gives you a new point to argue about things, okay. it's punting, but it's there. DACA's still there in place for another 6 months. But
provided he doesn't change his mind later and say, you know what,
that's
June.
true, because he can always say, yes, I said that, but now I'm not. Now I'm revoking it again.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true. But let's even play a little fantasy and say that's the deal. But that's not even the deal on the table.
No.
Even a fake promise. I mean, I got a fake promise out of McConnell, at least, to do something. There's no fake promise from Trump. I don't know why Patty Murray openly said that she's delinking them. I'm not sure how that helps her in any way, even in her negotiations on the budget agreement, if this is actually a budget agreement, because they could have been trying to sweeten the budget to such a way that you'd give up on DACA. It's just bad negotiating. There's just no two ways about it under any circumstances. It's just, to me, inexplicable. And it's not uncommon. Democrats aren't great negotiators. It's hard to negotiate from the minority, but
yes,
you still take whatever little thing you have and use it to maximize your leverage. But to focus just on the DACA question, though, February 8th, as here's how Murray in the article describes it, right? Or at least the article describes it. Is this in quotes? No.
What's that?
Here's her quote. This is what she said in quotes, but there's a big ... so who knows what else she said.
Mm-hmm.
February 8th, we're going to have another something, stopgap bill. So she's already saying there's going to be a CR.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, it'll
February
be a CR, but the question is how long it will last. I mean, you can do a CR for the balance of the fiscal year. You can do a CR for another 2 weeks, 2 days, whatever. But
all right, so
I'm not sure what that means.
All right, but let's take the best case scenario and say she's saying a week.
Okay.
So she's expecting a 1 week CR on February 8th, but then the next line she says, but we have to have that budget agreement in order to move forward. ...
Yeah, that's the problem.
Okay.
We don't know what she means by budget agreement.
And that ... is critical, reporter. Please. Next time, keep the whole quote in so we know what we're talking about. So that ... could explain a lot. But it does seem to me that she's not imagining or envisioning a long-term spending bill.
I can't tell, but maybe not. And what appears to me to be the case here is she's saying, all right, so we're going to have another short-ish term bill, one that would, but again, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, I would still say a bill that funds you through the end of the fiscal year is still a stopgap bill. It stops the government from shutting down, and it fills that gap between now and the end of the fiscal year. But we have to have that budget agreement, which God only knows what that is supposed to mean. I think that's supposed to mean agreement on lifting spending caps in order to move forward. That's the goal. And then the deal is that if DACA is not a part of that, it will be the next thing considered. So I guess the deal with McConnell supposedly is we'll do DACA next after February 8th if a spending deal of some kind, of some duration, and I'm sure he has some minimum in mind, but he hasn't stated it, a deal of some duration that everyone can agree to, and that will mean for my senators' insistence on inclusion, on lifting spending caps on defense and other areas. If we can put together a deal that funds the government for some amount of time going forward and agrees that the budget caps can be broken in the next real budget negotiation, and the government is running, then the next thing we'll do, if I hold to my promise, is address DACA, and presumably in clean fashion. And then they would agree to that in the Senate, pass that on to the House, and then the question is, will House Democrats say, we're not part of that deal, and we still link DACA and funding the government directly, and if there's no DACA in this, we're a no, and you're going to have to corral your Freedom Caucus guys. That may be difficult to do. That might not be difficult to do. They may be kidding, and they might roll over instantly and say, yes, I'll take this. And at which point, okay, then the leverage is gone, and we all turn back to the Senate and say, well, McConnell, will you honor that agreement? And he says yes, says no, I don't know.
You mean the agreement on DACA?
Bringing a DACA bill to the floor.
All right,
Senate,
let's assume he does. He
Okay.
brings a DACA bill.
Yeah.
And it goes to a vote, and it gets 60 votes, and it passes.
Yeah.
Now what?
Goes to the House where they say we don't want anything to do with it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the first part of the negotiations, I guess, is, and we never really did find out clearly from Democrats what they meant. Did they, to say we're linking the funding of the government to DACA? Do you mean to a DACA solution or a DACA vote? Okay, we can give you DACA votes all day long. It doesn't save anybody from deportation. It's a nice try, but it's not by itself saving anybody. It's got to be the passage and enactment into law of a DACA bill. But in the minority, you're in near zero position to demand that, unless you're literally willing to say, as Democrats very rarely are, I will shut the government forever and ever until we get this thing done. And you just don't have enough Democrats who are willing to do that and are willing to go into re-election bids having had the government shut down, arguably on their shoulders for 8 months. Nobody wants to do
that. I'm just trying to figure out what the thought process is for the leadership in the Senate for the Democrats on this. And this article is confusing. It's not clear.
Yeah, well, rarely will the articles tell us what's really going on in there. I mean, it gives us some smattering to try and pundit it out ourselves, but I don't think they're ready to tip their hand, and their hand might not be all that good to begin with,
it's not. And here's the real problem if you're a DACA person who wants them to use everything they can get.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and this was essentially Schumer's problem in the first shutdown, and I know people just can't deal with this, but it's a reality. Schumer isn't a dictator in the caucus.
Right.
He can ask for party line vote. He can whip, but there comes a time when they don't go for it. And they say no. 5 already did.
Yeah.
You lose 4 more and it's over.
Yeah.
So the Schumer's, it's only as strong, the threat and the shutdown, if you believe it's the right strategy, is only a tool so long as you can hold 41.
Right.
So I understand all that, David. I guess we're 2 or 3 days now removed from the end of the last shutdown, and this article, which came out yesterday, is perplexing. Frankly, forget about the substance. I wouldn't want, if I was a Democratic Senate leader, I wouldn't have wanted this article to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Not publicly, even if I was doing it. Why? Because you're going to deflate people here. They're already very skeptical of you. You needed to get them to get back on board, to pressure Ryan to try to message this properly, which they're not doing. Again, that's another problem. DACA is just some game playing between Trump and Walz and all that. No one's focusing on the dreamers themselves. The Democrats aren't really doing that either. It just strikes me as, frankly, more of the same in terms of the handling of this, the politics of it, and it's not being handled well. Again, in some ways, I argued for a reset because I thought they stumbled out of the gate, but it's not like their performance has improved. It's gotten a little bit worse, arguably. So in that sense, those who disagree with me are being proven more right than in the sense that they probably properly anticipated that the Senate Democrats would not play the politics very well. I think all of this underlying procedure and the games and the Senate internal politics is all important. But the public face, what you face publicly, what you show, what you want reported, what you want your supporters to be seeing and thinking, it's just not coming through with an article like this, in my view.
Well, I don't know really what they had to offer in terms of this fight. I mean, it is a very different kind of fight in that you don't have, and I don't know, people I think went into it with a lot of assumptions. Well, it's got 80% support nationally, so the Republicans are going to be interested in finding some solution. They've said in the past, they're on record, they've said we need to make this, we need to codify this, it can't be done. We're angry not because we hate immigrants, but because it was done by executive order. Well, that's a lie. You do hate immigrants, and you can't wait to get rid of them. So
no, they've always viewed DACA as a chip. That's why Trump repealed it, repealed the executive order, and Republicans, particularly in the House, have to them it's just a chip. That's what the Good Life bill is about. Okay, here's this little thing for you. Here's 19 things for me.
Right.
And the 19 things are horrendous and awful.
Yes.
But they're offering DACA. And if the Democrats don't take it, they get to say, hey, we offered DACA. It's the Democrats who kept DACA away from them.
Right. Well, but it was full of poison pills. Yeah, well, it was. That's true. And one good pill, it's a tiny one, and those people are going to be mad at you for not bailing them out for taking our deal. It is interesting. I will say the same dynamics will come into play among the activist base, and we may promise or swear to one another that it won't, but when push comes to shove and there's 19 poison pills in there, but one tiny slice of the dreamer population gets a narrow reprieve, not citizenship, but you get to remain in the country for 3 more years pending another fight exactly like this one, whatever crumb is offered them. When it comes time to cast that vote, that tiny slice of the population will say, you better vote for it or else you're abandoning us. And the other 80% of the dreamer population says, no, stand in solidarity. Don't take a deal for that 20% and leave us 80% out in the cold. And, solidarity only goes so far for the 20% who say, I can stay. You better take that deal or you're selling me out. And the 80% say, no, you're selling us out. Yeah, everybody's selling everybody. I promise you.
That's the setup. And again, that's why if your bargaining chips have to be things they want, not things you want. And this budget talk, I heard about these budget caps, and I thought that was something that was a quiet lever and then to tie to DACA, and they said no. So now what you're left with is, okay, you give them the wall, and the wall's just stupid, and frankly, if you win enough elections, you can reverse it. You can even tear it back down. So it's just a waste of money, but fundamentally, I don't think it's a long-term issue. The other things that they're asking for, and this is why Miller and Kelly blocked the Graham-Durbin deal and then the Schumer Trump deal, was because they didn't get those other things. That's what they really want. They want to end family reunification. They want to end TPS. They want to end diversity concerns. They want, in their words, merit-based immigration, which, of course, is white people from Norway. And that's the price they're going to try to extract for DACA. What it seems to me you needed to do was make the price of DACA other things, like, obscene spending on defense, which, I know it's not politically good to say that we're wasting money in the Pentagon, but that's what we're doing, of course.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it's not sexy. But the fact is, a lot of these Republicans are taking care of donors. You mentioned the one thing that you said they always wanted was put private payments for veterans in mandatory spending as opposed to discretionary spending, and that's a big change because mandatory spending is precisely what it means, mandatory.
Yeah, you won't be able to. It's very difficult to pare that back or eliminate it. It's near impossible to find the votes for it.
Yeah, so it's those are things that they apparently really want. And you were using those chips to get more domestic spending or whatever programs, and those are important things too. Again, there is priorities, and maybe we're over prioritizing DACA. I don't think so, but I'm gonna, I come from immigrants, so it's important to me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean my important thing is the most important thing in the larger scheme of things. Maybe it isn't, but certainly the posturing was that DACA was the reason we had a shutdown.
Yes.
So if it's worth a shutdown, isn't it worth taking a harder line on the budget talks?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, it's a difficult, like I say, I guess we'll come back to the same problem. It's a difficult calculation because you're not dealing with another party that's A, dealing in good faith, or B, living in the same planet as you. It's just, these guys relish the opportunity to do terrible things to all immigrants and DACA families in particular. And so, what we're left with is the traditional politics of, well, why don't we tell the very sympathetic stories, individual stories? We're always being counseled to do that. Let's show pictures of the people. Let them see the faces of our DACA recipients and hear their success stories. And it does, in fact, generate 70 plus 80% support among the public. And then you're still, though, faced with the very cold, hard reality. I'm doing this anyway because I hate them and I've been given the power to do it. And that's all there is to it. If you don't want me to also spit in their eye, I demand $500 billion more for defense, or I demand mandatory spending be directed to my pocket. Otherwise, I'll not only throw out your 800,000 dreamers, I will round up everybody that even looks like they might be a little bit tan and deport them. But that's an unreasonable position to take. Well, that's what I'm taking. I'm doing it. My base loves it. And as long as I'm here, I'm going to do it. You might impeach me for it. I don't care. I'm an idiot. I'm a moron. I'm barely conscious of the fact that I'm president of the United States. I'm constantly threatening nuclear war. I don't know what I'm doing. Do you see how crazy and idiotic I am? I will do this. I'm being directed by people who are Nazis. Oh. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what leverage do you have over Nazis, right? And so I think what they're really enjoying is the fact that the only retaliation we know, and the only retaliation we've ever been taught was reasonable and within bounds, is to then get frustrated with the only party that has any interest in helping you whatsoever and say, I'm sitting on my hands next election. Screw you. Why should I help you? Democrats, you're weak. You're spineless. You run away from every fight. I hate you. I'm not helping you. And the end result is now it's a 300 Nazi House and a 58 Nazi Senate. And now we're really angry. We're totally going to vote against you guys next time. Go get them, Democrats, and say, I don't know, you guys just ran out on us at election time. I don't know how much I'm going to want to do for you. But, well, who did this first? Chicken and egg. I don't know. Did you abandon me first? Did I abandon you first? I don't know. But they don't care as long as we have this fight. They're happy because there's less of us and more of them. And, by the way, less of you brown people, too. So I don't know. I have no solution for it except to say, you got to swallow hard. You're being presented with two choices in 2018 in the elections with regard to, there's people who literally will oppose 80% of the population just to have a shot at making brown people sad. And then there's the other guys who are kind of nervous because they're afraid of being attacked because they're not closing their minds and their country to brown people. That sucks, but, you know, it's okay. Really? Stay home is the option?
It really is, but then it's, you know, it all boils down to elections have consequences.
Yeah.
It's starting with Donald Trump. And everyone being,
yeah, I don't know what to tell you. We also, along with the stories of small towns that are entirely white that still support Trump, so the New York Times is going to check in on them. There was also a rash of stories, now less in fashion, by the way, of the DACA family that's having the patriarch arrested and deported, and telling the reporters, "I didn't think he meant us."
God Almighty. Yeah, I mean, I've refrained from commenting on that particular story because I saw things said by the family that I thought were
dumb people everywhere. We got dummies on our side too. But so
yeah,
okay,
that's a good way of putting it. Okay, so at the end of the day, and it's a fairly unsatisfying end of the day.
Yes,
it's still pretty unclear. It's a difficult negotiation. We don't really know what this story is telling us. The parts of it seem worrisome, and everything you said was true, and still, I would argue that these 3 days have not been stellar for the way Democrats need to play the DACA issue.
I have no answer for that. They have been less than stellar. Oh, and by the way, just before we close everything out, I'll also throw out DACA activists. I have no other suggestion for you but to be protesting and shouting at your representatives and telling them, I will stay home. I think you shouldn't in the end, which is ironic because then you will have been the spineless ones if you go and do the right thing. But this gives you a flavor of how difficult this stupid situation really is. If you were to do that, if you were to say, use the only tools at your disposal, I have to allow you to that kind of protest. And shouting down people at their own speeches, it's rude or whatever, but that's all there is. That's all you've got. Right. You have to resort to that, and it's perfectly all right ultimately to have to do that. And then when the decision time comes, do you stick with your principles and stay home because you said you would, and that's the negotiating tactic that you wish Democrats would use? Fine. You've now lost all the elections, and the people you have available to you to scream at actually love torturing you. That's the alternative. Or do you scream at people who will have some kind of pang of conscience at it and say, I can't help you now, but I feel like I owe you something later, or I'm going to try to negotiate to try to get you some kind of scrap other than throwing you in the fire myself and pouring gasoline on top of you.
Well, I mean, elections are must pass. So to coin a phrase.
There you go.
But I will say this. I will say this: primaries are not
true. Also, and
we've always understate the importance of primaries to challenge incumbents. I've always said everybody should be primaried every election, but people get upset about it. Like someone's going to primary Manchin. Oh, leave Manchin. No, primary Manchin. You're not going to you're wasting your time and money. You're not going to win. It's in that sense.
Yes,
and you're not going to
worry of weakening them, etc. But yes.
But primary him. Maybe you'll get him to move an inch or two towards your position just to keep himself safe.
Yeah.
So those are things. But at any rate, as I said, the ending of this story and the ending of the show, I guess, is fairly unsatisfying. But we muddle on.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't much choice either, as is the end of the show. No choice about that either, and that's coming up. But I don't know. I guess it is very unsatisfying, certainly, although I think we stumbled upon at least some kind of interesting way to look upon the situation going forward. That very shortly, the hardest of hardline DACA activists, protesters, etc., will be asked to make a very much analogous choice to the members of Congress. They have to vote, you have to vote. And so the question is, do you stick with principle and lose huge and hurt yourself and your friends or allies, or do you bend just this one time so that we can move on to the next fight? Because that's what they were just asked to do, and you think they're sellouts for doing that. And I'm telling you, we're going to come around with a bill asking you to sell out in November of 2018. Your opportunity is there to stand strong and pack your things because you're on your way out the door if you do. It's tough. Anyway, thanks, Armando. We'll continue to discuss this, I'm sure, maybe even as soon as tomorrow. And time now, though, for me to hand things over to Justice for his program following up the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Let me cram in what we can about this one. Republicans and the White House trying to dismantle trust in law enforcement. You're seeing it in real time. GOP Pennsylvania Representative Charlie Dent says enough already. Then they've got Betsy DeVos, I am corrected in the pronunciation, bans journalists from her speech to the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
More to come here. Scientists accuse EPA Secretary Scott Pruitt of stacking the deck against scientific integrity. And the president of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, plans to step down from the reproductive rights group after more than a decade on the job. There's much more to come, too, this time from Davos. Do stay tuned to hear more from Justice next.